So we're going to talk about trust, building trust. Everything in our initial talk about leadership comes down to trust. And how do we build trust? What does it look like? What do we go through when we don't have trust? Now, I'll tell you, I can talk a lot about working for organizations where trust is not there. And in that atmosphere, there is no way that you're going to have followers risk, right? There is no way that you're going to have employees risk. There is no way that you're going to have the organization take any kind of risks. And if anybody is not willing to risk, whatever that means, from a personal perspective, from an organizational one, then the organization is on a downhill slide. So we're talking at the break about so many of our meetings we just don't attract anybody. They're boring, and on and on and on. Why don't people step up and tell us what they want to see? Why don't they come to our gatherings and say, I'd like to see this or I'd like to do that? And I can tell you why. It's because they don't trust that A, I'll take it seriously and understand it from their perspective, and B, that I'll do anything about it. This absence of trust is caustic in an organization like ours, which is built on the premise that we trust each other. Everything about Freemasonry, everything about the organizations that spring from it, builds on this level of trust that we have with each other. So I like to think of it as kind of a society has, as all of us in some way have a certain basis of trust, right? We might come from the same community, or we grew up together, we went to school together, you know each other, you've got some basis of trust. Freemasonry then, that we all share the same experience of initiation and going through this process, and then we go into other organizations, we keep building that layer up a little bit higher each time, so that, again, I've met Masons from around the world. It's amazing the level of instant trust we have with each other. And that comes from that development of shared experiences that we've gone through collectively. Now, inside of our personal lives then, this ability for us to trust is predicated on one thing, and that's knowledge. Do I know you? Do I know my neighbors? I can tell you from personal experience, I do not. Quite frankly, I don't even know the name of the two that live next door to me.
It's Zappas. Zappas.
I hope they never watch this.
Barb and Ken.
But we move away from these places, and this has been a long journey, right? The long societal journey that is locking us inside of our houses and keeping us from trusting each other. But I've worked with men that I don't trust. I knew they didn't have my back. I knew they had no interest in me being successful. The only interest they had, as far as the leader of our organization was concerned, was to not pad their own pocket, but maybe to pad their own ego, right? To lift themselves up. And by the way, when those guys are done as leaders, they're done and they're gone. Now, they might migrate to another organization, but as far as the one they came from, they're gone. You never see them again. The organization is built in such a way that if we don't trust you, you're gone. At the same time, though, for that period of time that they were the leader in that organization, we've really suffered because we haven't been able to do anything. And by the way, another one of John Maxwell's laws is the law of magnetism. We attract who we are. So if that's who we are, that's who we attract. We pull more of those
What's
in.
the sign on our basement when you walk to the end of our basement say?
Something about tribes and vibes.
It says, your vibe attracts your tribe. And think about that. If you're having internal conflict and frustration and people don't get along and all of that, are people going to want to come to that? Are they going to want to be exposed to that? They can get that watching, staying at home or doing something different. We need to create an environment where there is that positive vibe, there is that attraction. I want to go be with those people. I walk out of there feeling better than when I got there. I know that there are times that I've gone to meetings and oh my gosh, it's late, I got home from work, I get dressed, I go, and I just sort of slog there. But once I'm there's something that happens. People love on me, they hug me, they talk to me. I walk out going, I feel better than before I actually came. But that takes a conscious effort to create a culture. And I guess we didn't talk very much about the aspect of culture, but that's what's going to make people attracted to your groups.
So inside of that then, and using the culture as as kind of the byword that we're going to use now, I want you to think of trust in this way. Change in your pockets. I'll trust you when you've got a lot of change in your pockets. The change in your pockets comes from your successes, the things that you do every day. So if you say, Bob, trust me, I'll get this done. Bob, trust me, we can go this way and things are going to be okay. And you do that over a period of time, and you're going to put change in your pockets. And that change is crucial, because when it comes time for you to ask me to step out and to take a risk, I'm going to need some of your change to do that. The change is what I liken to as trust. It's just a different way to look at it. So everything that we do, when I say, trust me, I'm going to help you do this. We can get there together. We can do better together. When I say that and then we do it and we work through, you're giving me money. That change is going in my pockets. Now, as a leader, we've got to have a lot of that. Now, you think about some really good leaders inside of your organization. One that I think about often, not Masonically, but was Alan Mulally, who was CEO at Ford Motor. And Alan Mulally came in there at a period of time when Ford was losing that year $14 billion. $14 billion was being lost. And he steps up as CEO and he says, you got to trust me. We're going to go over here and we're going to get better and we're going to do okay, but you got to trust me. And they didn't. Not until he got some little successes in his pocket, right? Starts to build up some change. And the way that he did that was just really pretty basic stuff. He got rid of the executive dining room, right? Everybody eats together. He knew every person's name in Ford World headquarters. That's a big bunch of people. He knew every single person. He met them, he talked to them every day. He knew who their kids were, he knew when their birthdays were. This was a man who said, you can trust me. Know that I have your back. And Ford did. And he took them, they were the only one that didn't take a government buyout, whether payout or whatever, whether that was a good idea or not, I don't know that. But I do know that he took Ford from losing $14 billion, $17 billion, to a place where it became profitable within 3 years. Now he did that. There was a lot of harm in there too. There was a lot of hurt. But he worked with the union, he worked with its employees, and he built them out of that place where they became successful once again. That's leadership who had change built in his pockets, and when he had enough, then he could move the organization forward. Trust is like that. The key thing that I think for trust is that it takes time. It takes time. You look at really trusting relationships built over a long period of time, husbands and wives. Today, the divorce rate is well over 50%. It's been higher than that. It's coming down a little bit, but that's generally because people are getting married later in life. But when I look at my parents' relationship, there was a lot of shared sacrifice, shared struggle in that. And in that, they spent a lot of time together. Now, they had to. They weren't going to go separate places. They only had one car, and we lived out in the country, so you weren't going to go anywhere separately. You went together, and you spent a lot of time together. You think about our Masonic life today. We've kind of minimized the requirements of getting together, of breaking bread, of sharing a laugh and fellowshipping together, to where it's now a couple hours a month, maybe. And we've got to get back to a place where we spend time with each other. Time together builds relationships.
I think, too, family time, and that's a piece that I think we can have that conversation. I came of age in the 70s. I was raised by Marion Cunningham. My mother was the epitome of Marion Cunningham. I came of age when in 19...
Who's Marion Cunningham?
Marion Cunningham from the Happy Days.
Oh, from Happy Days.
Happy Days.
Right.
Yeah. Happy Days.
Does everybody know Happy Days?
Ozzie and Harriet.
Okay.
Nelson's, what was Mrs. Nelson's name? Harriet. Harriet's the name of our Roomba. That's a whole other story. Women in the workplace changed our country. My mother was always home when I got home from school. I worked full time. I was a single mom. I was a single mom for a lot of years, and it is what it is. So when you think about it, when a husband comes home and the wife comes home and he's been working, she's been working, they got the kids, they got soccer, they got this, they got that, and the husband says, well, I'm going to go off to Shrine, and she's going, well, hold on, trash needs to go out, all these things need to be done. We need to think about, is there a way of incorporating so that there is more family opportunity, not necessarily at meetings and but it can't be us and them. It can't be the guys do this and the girls do this, and think about opportunities. Mandy will talk to you about children, how to engage kids in the activities, and how do we make this family friendly, where working families and everybody's working can have an opportunity. Maybe everybody comes for dinner and then the guys go off to the meeting. I'm not sure. Think differently. Look at who the folks are. Look at their life. Well, people can't go, well, that wasn't how I was when I was raising my kid. You're right. It's different. It's different, and we have to be willing to wrap our arms around everybody.
So when we think about then Shrine and your events, don't break them out in the way that we normally have. In other words, this is an event. The ability of us to build trust with each other and develop trust as an organization is going to be the difference between us surviving and us not. We move the mindset from where we say our events are separate from our soul. Our soul is one of trust, it's one of healing. Men need that today. Our society needs it desperately. So we come together collectively and we say we're better together than we ever could be apart. That our lives are richer because we share time with each other. And that moves us to a place where the rest of society looks at you and says, man, I want to join him. I want to join her. I want to see what they've got. The only way you're going to do that in this world is to make sure that that family is better, successful. What am I doing to make the families of my membership more successful? How am I helping their kids become successful? It may be that you got to spend some time in a school helping kids learn to read. It might be that you got to spend some time having a little holiday party for them, making sure that they have some fun and some enjoyment. The Shrine's a place of fun, so don't negate that. Don't knock that down. It's a place of fun. It's supposed to be fun. Do good things together, and make sure that when you say, I want to know why you don't come to the Shrine, when they tell you that you listen to it, and that we work together then to say, this is what we could do. Imagine that. There have been organizations that have grown and prospered. We're a little bit different than we were 30 years ago, but we're certainly not down. We've got a lot of stuff going for us. A lot of benefits that the world right now needs desperately. And one of those is that we have a good group of men who have a great base of trust with each other, and that we know that. Let's make sure that the rest of the world knows that too, and that we carry that forward with them.
I think part of what we have to ask about too are when trust has been broken, and what does that look like? And that might have been sort of the conversations we were having earlier, where you have someone who's been in leadership who's been hurtful. Anybody been around somebody who's hurt their feelings, or there's been a hurtful event? How do we overcome that? How do we overcome that and get back to that place where, this goes back to the outward piece of it, is that if we see that person as a person, what does that look like when that pain has happened, and how do we put that back together? I'm looking at you.
We have to be able to say to ourselves, I'm sorry. I don't mean to hurt anybody, right? That's not who we are. We're not that people. But on occasion, right, we do something that's hurtful. We do something that's mistrustful. We do something that costs us some change. in our pockets. All right? It's when that occurs that we say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And that's okay. My father was not a man who said he was sorry. If he did something that I disagreed with, his answer was tough. I'm the father, you do what I tell you to do. Yeah, but you told me to do something stupid, it hurt me. And he said, well, you learned a lesson. All right, and I did. Today, in our relationship though, the two words, and all husbands know this intuitively, are yes, dear.
Yes,
but more importantly, it's I'm sorry. It's I'm sorry, you know, and a lot of times I do things that are just that I don't even think about. Might be my socks laying on the living floor. That's where socks are supposed to be, by the way.
No, they don't.
So
they go in
you
the
know,
hamper.
but it drives her to the point of insanity. So I still don't pick them up, but I do say I'm sorry a lot. But we have to get to a point where we're just willing to say I'm sorry. I'm not perfect. None of us are. And in that pursuit to say that I can do better with our relationship and with our relationship, when we do make a mistake or when we do do something that's neglectful of somebody else, just say I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's so basic, it's so human, and it's also one of the most impossible things for us to get our arms around, just to say I'm sorry. But in the end, it'll have a tremendous impact. If we neglect somebody else's feelings, if we don't even understand it, a lot of times we don't understand that we've even done it. But you can get a feeling, right? Today I'm much more open to that. I get a feeling, oh, I did something wrong. I don't know what it was, but I know I did something. And then it's just kind of a blanket, I'm sorry. I have no idea what I did, but I'm desperately sorry that I did it. And I hope that you forgive me for that. So, you know, as we go forward in our series, we're going to talk about forgiveness and what that looks like. The greatest thing that we have for each other is the building of trust, and trust comes from an awful lot of forgiveness, and it comes from a lot of apologies too.
I want to talk about parents. My mother's famous line was, no matter how thin the pancake, there's two sides. And I want you to just think about Joniel's mother next time you're looking at a situation. There's always two sides. There's usually more than two sides sometimes. But rather than react, if I had my reflex hammer, rather than react, take one second, breathe, go, maybe there's more to this story than I know about, and maybe there's some other things I should do about it. The other thing, one last thing, my mother always said, when something happened and I would come to her and I'd have a conversation, her other famous line was, did anybody die from it? Because if nobody died from it, we can probably fix it. So again, think about some of those things, because they do matter. They do. There was a reason why my mother said no matter, or don't cry over spilled milk, all of those kind of things have purpose.
Trust is an amazing thing. And again, I want you to come back to this place of successes. And you as a leader inside of your organizations, whatever it might be, what are your successes? What have you done that have put change in your pockets or not? So a lot of us flew to get here. A lot of us fly all the time. Do you know the pilot? Do you know the co-pilot? Left seat, right seat, do we know those people? No. Do we know the people that built that aircraft? And yet that thing's up there going 560, 600 miles an hour inside of a jet stream that's going 200 miles an hour at 36,000 feet in the air, connected to the earth by absolutely nothing more than dynamics.
You have just scared half the people that are watching this tape.
And yet, we trust them.
Yeah.
We trust thousands of people, by the way, for that one experience of us getting inside of a silver sausage and moving from point A to point B. And they do it every day. They do it incredibly well. So why do we trust them? Why would you possibly trust somebody with that? Because they're successful at it. They've got so much change in their pockets that the mere thought of an airplane crash is almost impossible for us to comprehend. That success drives us to say, I trust you. I trust you to get me from point A to point B. Uncomfortably, most likely, with great hunger by the time I get there, but I'm going to get there safe and secure, and probably in the same day when I'm supposed to get there. But we trust them. So you've got this built-in security. That's what I want you to think about when it comes to trust. We trust them not because we know any of them, but because they have great successes, lots of change in their pockets. Do you trust each other inside of your organizations because you've got lots of change in your pockets? Or is your trust very thin because they really don't ask you to risk very much? That might be the answer.
Thank you. How do you get an organization to trust this new generation and the new changes in this generation? Because past experience with other organizations, when you bring changes of the new generation, how we see things, and we want to make the organization better, some of the, per se, old folks, because I will be there
Seasoned.
soon, are so stuck in that this is how we've been doing it for so long,
Yeah.
and we don't want to change it. How do you get their trust to see that we want to go forward and you have to incorporate this new generation and how they are moving forward, yet their organization is still on a standstill?
Yeah, it's a great question. That's something I think a lot of us struggle with. I will tell you that I look at that generation of millennials and younger with a great deal of confusion at times. I don't say that proudly. I say that because I've never spent any time having to work with them. And so last year, I made a commitment that I was going to spend time with the younger employees in our organization and to get to know who they were and what they're doing. And you know, a lot of that, and this came to me just the other day, I still am very confused by them. But one of them looked at me and said, you know, you've become a great mentor to me. And I said, I haven't done a thing. Why? He said, because you listen to me. That listening is something that they don't have a lot of opportunity for either. I am amazed at young people today. Absolutely amazed. They have experiences in their world that I couldn't even have imagined when I was their age. And when they look at their world, they don't see it in the kind of constrained way that I did. It's a very big place that they can have connections to and go to that I had no possible way to do that. So today I look at them, at people younger than myself. I don't even want that to sound like I look at them, right? I look at people very differently. I want to see them as people. And what is it that drives you, motivates you, scares you? And when I look at them, I see really the same things that when I was a young man or a man their age that I was concerned about. How am I going to pay? Today the debt isn't so much how's a young person going to pay for their house? It's how they're going to pay for their college. They still want the same things for their kids that I wanted for ours. You know, I want them to be happy and healthy and sustainable. I want them to know that they're loved and cared for. That's the same. Those things haven't changed. So some of the dynamics have changed a little bit.
I think part of what you need to think about is, what are they afraid of? If you change, what are they afraid? You know, the folks who are afraid of, who don't want change, are usually afraid. They're used to this. It's comfortable. It's a sense of control. I think all of us struggle with, you know, the known versus the unknown. And when you interject a new variable, a new group of individuals who want to do something different, it is really hard when you're afraid. What are they going to do?
Yeah, I'll lose my place
I'll lose my
in the
place.
organization.
Yeah.
And the reality is that, you know, I love the kind of the context of Masonry was youth, manhood, age, right? So in youth, we occupy our minds in the attainment of useful knowledge. As men, we put that knowledge to use, and we build a better world. And then as in age, we sit back and reflect upon the happiness of a well-spent life. That's kind of where we're at. But right now, we don't have enough younger people on the coming into the organization for the older ones to sit back and reflect. The older ones have to constantly be involved in it. They need to say it's okay to step back. I guarantee you, if we started listening to younger people inside of our organizations, that they would point us in a direction we're probably not even capable of imagining. But we've got to let them do that. they're gonna point us in a different direction. I'll guarantee it. And it's up to us to say that's okay. I'm gonna provide you with my wisdom. I got a lot of it, but at the end, you're the ones that are gonna carry this thing forward in the next 30 years, not me. And in the next 60 years, it's not even gonna be you. So what are we building out for that period of time? Mentoring, put an old guy with a young guy. There's going to be conflict, there's going to be struggle, there's going to be debate, and it's going to be great. And they'll both gain so much from that. So much from that.
I think one of the important things for those of us who are active in these Masonic organizations is to consider the aspect of immersion. I mean, I work very closely with Masonic youth. You guys do too. And Bob, you've told very many times about when they invade your house.
Yes.
Can you touch on that a little bit? Because I mean, that's part of
the infestation.
The infestation, yeah. How we get comfortable with the new generation is to immerse ourselves with their.
That's a really good point.
I actually locked myself in my den, which is now my bar.
Right.
And the reason that we locked it was so that they can't get in there, obviously. No, I mean, when I married Jo Neal, I married her world, right? I didn't really, she says, well, you knew what I was when you picked me up. That's not true.
I wasn't picked up.
I knew she was a daughter of Job, but I had no idea that she pulled this herd of Job's daughters with her. And this woman took the Job's daughter Bethel that she came to when she moved to Alma with me, Alma, Michigan, that had one daughter in that Bethel when we moved there, and in 1 year it had 11. That's because of her. And it's who she is that she attracts young ladies, and she motivates them, and she brings them to my house. Now we have a big house. We both thought, well, this thing's huge. Why are we buying this big house? Well, I know now why she wanted that big house. It was so that she could bring in this herd of Job's daughters. It's an infestation. They'll eat you out of house and home. And if you don't have food, you better have food in there, and you better have like double stuffed Oreos and Doritos, because if you don't, they'll eat all the good stuff. So, and they'll come in and the house becomes noisy. So for those of you parents out there who are used to that and who love that, congratulations. That's not me. But they come into that place, and their parents come, and for an evening or for a weekend, that house is alive, and a very powerful thing. Immersion inside of that world is a good word. Whether you want it or not, it's a good word. And they'll come up and they'll say, let's show
you their tutus.
Yeah, let's show
let's
Dad
show Bob our
Conley
tutus.
our tutus and stuff like this. Yeah.
And he's very uncomfortable with that. Never having been a parent, for me to bring all
I
of
inherited her daughter, so that's where our daughter came from.
Yes. But that goes back to sort of inviting people into our world. And what I want you to realize is we have something wonderful to offer. We're not offering it. We're not offering it. We're not out there giving it, because we have this issue of, well, we need to get members for us. Absolutely not. We need to get members because they would gain something from our organization. They would gain an opportunity. They would gain a tribe. They would learn to fail successfully. Can I have a shout out on that one? Very few places in this world can you fail and be safe and have somebody go, you know what, let me help you with that one. And we have to be willing to make those mistakes. We have to be willing to let younger people. I am a very good ritualist, and I've been the director of Epochs for a lot of times, and I know how to do it in my sleep. And we have a new gal who's 28, and we were hosting a big event, and she was running the practice. And I did a bad thing. I took over. Can you just see it happening? I knew, well, they're not doing this, they're not doing this. And finally I went, Sam, I am so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I needed to, you know what I had to do? Anybody guess what I did? I went to the kitchen and drank coffee, because I needed to let her grow. And I wasn't doing, as long as I was there, she was not being able to be herself. She did a great job. She did a super job, but I had to be willing to let her do that and me get out of her way. And I think that's exactly what you're mentioning with the younger generation and allowing them to have this absolutely amazing thing. And part of what Bob said is, I believe that if we believe, and if we can share it, if we can say this is a really great thing. Another thing we've talked about is with Shrine in particular, I do a really good job taking care of young children who have burns and missing limbs and all of that. We don't do a very good job taking care of each other. We don't do a very good job of finding out why Grandpa so-and-so didn't come to Shrine. He's been always coming. Well, it turns out he fell and broke his hip and nobody reached out to him, or he doesn't have enough money for gas, or he doesn't have any of these things. And one of the pieces of the outward life is to think more about other people than you do about yourself. Be willing to give and be willing to share what we have to. We've got something really great to offer, and we're not doing a very good job of sharing that.